What is the real significance and meaning of Diwali? Should we or should we not burst crackers on this day? What does the life of Shri Ram teach us? In this episode of my podcast, I try to tackle these questions in the only way I know how to, as honestly as possible. Do I do them any justice? Only one way to find out. Dig right in. Hello, good people of the internet. Welcome to The Unlearning Playground, an everyday life podcast by Chetan Narang. So, just this past week, Indians all over the world, especially Hindus, celebrated the festival of Diwali. And traditionally it is a Hindu festival, but there are so many other religions and philosophies across India that a lot of people, a lot of different religions actually share the same day and celebrate different festivals. But predominantly, I want to talk in today's episode about Diwali. Now, there are a bunch of reasons why people celebrate Diwali, but the primary reason, what you should remember, or I would just recollect for you, is that the old tale of Ramayana, or Ramcharitmanas as it's also known to some people, tells of a Lord Ram who returns back to his kingdom after an exile of 14 years or something, and he comes back to ascend the throne of Ayodhya, which was I think it was the capital of Bharatvarsh at that time, I don't know, capital of India. But yeah, so this King Ram comes back home after an exile with his wife Sita and his brother Lakshman and let's say his Bhakt Hanuman. They come back to Ayodhya and he ascends the throne again. And in the celebration of his coming back to his hometown, the residents of the hometown of Ayodhya lighted up the entire town with diyas in those days, and that is how the festival of Diwali came into the picture. So traditionally, people all across India, especially Hindus again, celebrate this festival of Diwali by lighting diyas, and it's traditionally called a festival of light and prosperity. So what it's come to mean in the modern day and age, we'll come to that. But yeah, that's the backdrop of the festival. And so today's episode, I wanted to focus a little bit about how Diwali is celebrated. And so there's this pattern that I see emerging, especially over the past few years in our modern age, where there is a central question that always surrounds the festival of Diwali, which is whether or not we should burst crackers on Diwali. And again, anyone who's not familiar with how Diwali is celebrated, along with lighting diyas or putting up lights all over your house, people traditionally have also bursted a lot of crackers or fireworks. And this is a topic of contention now because there is one school of thought which says that crackers cause a lot of pollution, are damaging to animals and lead to calamities and accidents, and due to a bunch of other reasons also maybe, they should be avoided or rather even banned, right? And like always, there is another complementary school of thought which says that burning crackers on Diwali is a Hindu ritual and it should be done to ensure that the traditions are carried forward and are even respected in some sense. Now, I thought I'll use this episode to speak about this issue in a much broader sense. See, first is my personal stance on this. If you are a regular listener of this podcast, you would know that I do not really talk in terms of personal opinions mostly. I like to speak about objective truths or even subjective truths on some topics, but never really opinions, right? But I'll take a step back on that. And today I'm going to talk about my own personal stance on crackers. See, for me personally, I honestly do not know if crackers are the primary cause of pollution, the poor quality of air. Whoever is aware about the condition in North India, especially the capital city of New Delhi, would know that the air quality has been degrading over the past few years quite a lot. And especially around the festival of Diwali, this year and the last 2-3 months, it gets severely almost cancerous. And this I've experienced personally. If I land in Delhi, I can experience a change in the way I breathe that air. It is actually very, I don't know. I don't even find the right adjectives. Cancerous is definitely one. Toxic is another. But yeah, so and the Diwali crackers are definitely put to blame. At least they are one of the things that are put to blame for the poor quality of air in Delhi. Now, I do not know if crackers are the primary reason or even a substantial reason for this quality of air that we see around this time. I'm pretty sure they would contribute at least in the short term, right? And anyone who doubts that, you can just come over to my apartments here in Bangalore. And I mean, Diwali was just last week, and me and my wife, we have this ritual of going down after our dinner and taking a walk. And just within 4 to 5 minutes of being downstairs, around all the smoke that the crackers had generated, we could not really stand. We had to come back up. And it was not because we don't like the noise or whatever. Of course, we don't prefer the noise, but the noise didn't get to us as much as the smoke did, right? So in the short term, definitely crackers do cause pollution, and I don't think anyone should be denying that. So my personal stance, I think, ever since I've really started to think for myself and um, think deeply for myself rather, my stance has been that crackers aren't really good even in the short term. So, I mean, I don't like standing out in the open when someone else is bursting crackers in front of me, maybe because of the noise, but especially because of the smoke. And for that reason, I am against crackers. Just like I think, just like I'm against cigarettes, right? I don't think anyone should smoke, and people who smoke and then defend it as their right or defend it as if there's nothing wrong with it are just about, in my opinion again, they're just about the most unaware people there can be, right? It's one thing to do something as, I don't know, ignorant as smoking or even bursting crackers. It's a whole other level of ignorance to actually end up defending it as if there's nothing wrong with it, right? So that's my personal stance on it. But I think I think the main question that arises for me is to question whether this is actually such a big deal. See, there are few points I would like to put here. I think number one would be that it's really just common sense to realize that crackers lead to pollution. I'm not saying they are the only cause that leads to that much pollution that we see in northern India today, but they definitely lead to pollution. At least pollution for those few days or few nights, right? I think that should be just common sense. And then, of course, there are people who say that, well, other religions do such things too. For example, Muslims kill thousands of animals every year on Eid, or Muslims blast chants at 4 or 5 in the morning from their mosques, or in fact, the farmer community in Punjab burning stubble from their harvest, which leads to a lot of pollution too. All of these are equally, if not more, they're at least equally, let's just call them ignorant acts, right? But to anyone who actually gives me this argument in favor of bursting crackers, I would just say that, see, my friend, two wrongs never make a right. And this attitude of pointing ever so sharpening fingers at the other person without having cleaned up your own stuff first, this is exactly the kind of thing that I would like to think that every person, or rather every god or every saint who would have written those books that we really revere, or written all of those chants and all, everything that is written in your religion is supposed to make you not do that, just pointing fingers at other persons and not really cleaning up your own mess first. And that should actually motivate you if you see some other religion also doing equally, if not more, stupid things, and you can realize that those are stupid things. And if they're using your stupid things as an argument to not do their stupid things, that should motivate you to stop doing your stupid things first, right? So yeah, I think that's what I would say to that. I mean, of course, those points that I mentioned are also ones that should be addressed, but that does not leave out the fact that us bursting crackers is also one of those things, right? And then there are those people on the right side of the spectrum, right side of the political spectrum, who believe that all of this is a ploy to get Hindus down and Hinduism down and all of that. And to them, I say that you are not that different from the left wingers. I mean, if you look at everything that happened in the US just a few months back regarding all the anti abortion laws and everything, there is a big section of the left leaning people in the US who actually feel that all the anti abortion people are actually against abortion because they want to take away the rights that have been given to women in the modern society. And they, and that's these women actually feel threatened because they feel that the right wingers want to take away their rights, and that is, they feel that is the main aim for why they are doing this, without even understanding for a moment what the anti-abortionist argument really is. And that's exactly the same kind of mindset that people, the right leaning people in India, are adopting when they say that all of this, everyone who's saying that you should not be bursting crackers, it leads to pollution, all of those people are actually just anti Hinduism and they want to put Hinduism down. Of course, some extremist section of that side of the society would have that aim in their mind, but not everyone, right? There is also some truth to it that your crackers are leading to pollution, at least in the short term. Acknowledge that. And while I was saying that, I was just thinking of this exact same thing which I've been talking about multiple times on this podcast, that people on the left and the right are not too different really when you think about it. Think about it. But then I want to go back to discussing whether it is really such a big deal. I mean, see, I can give you that this is a ritual that we practice. Bursting crackers on Diwali is a ritual. I'm a 90s kid and I've grown up bursting crackers on every single Diwali. But to start to consider that ritual as a god sent or something of that sort is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it is a man made ritual. And if me saying that is triggering you, you have to understand that it's always been us human beings. It has never been someone away from us human beings who has come down and told us that this is what you're supposed to do and started a ritual of this sort. It's never been that. It's always been us human beings discussing things, writing books, preparing rituals, and all of that jazz. It's always been human beings. And I feel personally that to start a fight over such a ridiculous thing is almost laughable to do that on the festival of Diwali. I mean, I'm not too sure if you have actually listened to or heard about or read the story of Ramayana, but Ram, the central character, whose return back home we are celebrating on Diwali, was the epitome of sacrifice. And not that I'm professing sacrifice or the magnitude of sacrifice that he actually performs in that story. That is a topic for a whole other video. But he was the epitome of sacrifice. I mean, the guy sacrificed his kingdom for a very cruel stepmother who had very clearly plotted it against him. And then coming back, he actually sacrificed the, I would say, the company of his wife because of something that had happened within his kingdom. I don't remember the exact details of the story, but the guy's entire life was a story of sacrifice. And here we are, I don't know how many years later, and we can't let go of a stupid ritual, and the sacrifice of which is really not for anyone else. It's for you yourself. I mean, it's ridiculous that I've actually seen people bursting crackers actually wearing masks. This is pre-COVID times. These people burst crackers wearing masks to prevent themselves from the pollution that they themselves are causing. If that doesn't sound ridiculous to you, I don't know what will. So, I think on the festival of Diwali at least, we should rather be focusing more on what was the central message of the entire story of Ramayana? What was the central message of the entire life of Ram, right? And somehow we focus much more on the the external things, right? The rituals. And believe me, if a ritual has become more important than the actual message behind the festival and the religion, you should know that you've deviated from, let's say, the best version you could have been, or the best juice, the best nectar you could have extracted from whatever was being taught or practiced, right? And I think that should be obvious to everyone. That should be obvious to people on both sides of the spectrum, right? The central question on the day of Diwali cannot be whether you want to burst crackers or not. It cannot be that. We cannot stoop so low. We have to rise above it, right? It's not it's not a central part of your religion to actually burst crackers. I mean, come on. That's a man-made thing. It's a it's a stupid ritual we've started, and we need to let go of it at some point. Why can't we? Anyway, see, Diwali, as I remember from my childhood, um, used to be always called the festival of light and prosperity. And for the most of my life, it has meant external light and external prosperity. I mean, we light up our houses, we turn on all the lights within our houses too. We buy a lot of things on Diwali. There's sale going on now. It's online. It used to be offline back in the day, but sale all over the markets, and everyone is buying things, doing things outside. And now I realize that it is not that at all. I mean, the calling Diwali the festival of light and prosperity, or taking that as the central message of the entire story of Ramayana, is actually a very superficial um, thesis of a superficial mind. Actually, it is a part of it. It is the superficial part of it, and it should be propagated and taught and practiced in and around Diwali. I mean, I have no problems with the social games that we play, the exchanging gifts, the exchanging sweets, the lighting up your houses. All of that is fine, almost fine. But the central message of the light and prosperity is actually inner light and inner prosperity. I mean, if you were to just read the story of Ramayana and learn something from the guy who did so much in his life for others, right? For his father, for his mother, for his brother, for his wife, for his subjects, learn something from the guy and try to act that out, right? Become better within yourself. Light up that fire within you, not outside. Become prosperous from within you. That is the central message of the life of Ram, at least as I see it. And I'm pretty sure that anyone who actually respects any religion of any sort would want that to be the central message too, rather than the central message being how many beautiful crackers you can burst, or how many delicious sweets you can exchange, or how many pretty dresses you can buy, or jewelry you can exchange, or whatnot, right? And here I think it's also very important to mention, there's this guy, this contemporary author by the name Acharya Prashant. Really respect him. He says this very beautifully, and it's a very potent way to put it. He says that the life of Shri Ram should actually motivate you to learn from him and then move on from Shri Ram to Shri Krishna. Because Shri Ram was the epitome of sacrifice. Shri Ram was the epitome of staying within the limits of the law, let's say, and working within that boundary, working within the boundary of confined limits of humanity, because he lived his entire life by those rules, the rules defined by the humanity of that age. And then Sri Krishna, he was the character who defied humanity even, and took humanity to a different level, who actually gave the message in the Gita that humans are not limited to what they consider themselves to be limited by, right? So learn from Sri Ram and then transcend Sri Ram. I think that's a beautiful way to actually even close off this episode, right? I think in closing, I would just say that my stance on crackers, it's not that important. The question of crackers itself should not be that important. Anyone who respects religion or does not respect religion, you should start to consider that there are things beyond our petty little fights that we like to fight, right? There are things that are not really about you. There are things that you need to transcend to actually see, to actually get to the bottom of, to actually see what they're actually meant for, right? And what better occasion to do that than the festival of Diwali, right? So I think I'll leave you with that. I know this year's Diwali has gone away, but I hope that by the next year, before Diwali comes, this message rings in your mind and you remember that there's more to the festival than these petty little games that we play on a human level, right? Yeah, I think I'll end it at that. Well, as a small little plug in at the end of this episode, I wanted to add a few details. The first is that I did talk about the anti abortionist argument a bit in this episode, and if you're interested in learning some more about it, I actually did an entire episode where I built on this quite a bit. It is episode 16 of my podcast titled The Framing Effect. You can go on to your favorite podcast app. Spotify is the one I use, but you may be using Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, whatever. Just go on to your favorite platform, search for The Framing Effect in the search bar, and that should land you to episode 16 of this podcast. Of course, provided that you follow the show already on your platform. And if you don't, you know what to do first of all. Go follow the show, and while you're at it, also leave it a rating and a review because that is eventually what helps this content reach more and more people with time. And of course, I'll also add a link to the episode down in the show notes below. Well, then, on to the next update. I am actually taking up clients/students for my life coaching and philosophical mentoring program. You can check out the results that my current and previous clients have seen from the testimonial section on my website. Now, I do have some slots open, so if you or your close ones are interested in it, you can go on to my website www.chetannarang.org and head on to the Work With Me section. I think if any of my work really resonates with you and you wish to get deeper into it with me, that is the place to be. Do give it a look. And of course, the link can be found in the show notes below as always. So I think that's about it. I'll take your leave now and I hope to see you in the next episode very soon. If you wish to reach out to me directly, you know where to go. Check out the show notes. Until next time, peace out.